The deadline for the NFL rosters has passed. 3 o'clock deadline. It has passed, and there is plenty to tell you about. We'll get to the Astros made news today, too. Dana Brown and Nick Caserio are trying to fight for our lead story. Astros have signed Jason Hayward, lost in Philly. We'll get to plenty of that. Verlander on the mound, but we begin with the Houston Texans and their 53-man cut down. Well, there's some surprises here, Blankers. I mean, nothing that's like earth-shattering, but there is a lot of stuff that went down on this that I did not expect from the Houston Texans.
Let's start with what surprised you the most. In my case, it would be a guy that I think we were both convinced, because we hadn't seen play yet, was going to start the season on the injured list, but we would see him at some point with guaranteed money in his contract. But Noah Brown, no longer a member of the Houston Texans, was rather shocking to me. I thought we were talking about through camp. Is it going to be Hutchinson? Is it going to be Mechie? Who's going to make it at the bottom? Is Skronik have a chance? Talking about guys like that. Is Robert Woods going to get cut? And yet, lo and behold, I kind of double took it this morning on the internet going, wait, what? Noah Brown's cut?
Yeah, that one shocked me. I didn't think that Noah Brown was going to be on the 53-man roster.
Right.
So I guess I was right. Kinda, but I didn't expect him to be off of this football team. I thought that he would be on the 53. I thought he would be one of the 2 IR spots that the NFL teams can use these days. First year that they can do that. Couldn't do that in the past. When you placed a guy on IR, they were done for the year if it was pre-cut, like Kenyon Green. Apparently like Case Keenum, which we'll get to that in a second as well. I'm stunned that Noah Brown isn't one of the 55 spots, 53 plus the 2 injured spots. That one blew me away. That one really surprises me, and I don't really understand why. Like, unless you're using these 2 spots, like Case Keenum, they're saying the season is over. So that's not a short-term IR. Kurt Heinisch, Aaron Wilson's reporting that he is going to be the short-term IR. So Heinisch is a guy who isn't on the 53, but it's going to be that first IR. If the Texans don't have a second IR guy, why aren't you just placing Noah Brown on the IR and then making this decision in 4 weeks? So I'm still very curious to see if they use that second IR spot. They must. But if they don't, I'll be a little disappointed with Nick Caserio.
Yeah, especially because it's basically throwing some money out the window. And I understand that he's had injury concerns throughout his career, and we saw it last year. He also had 2 really big games for you when you needed him most. And you would think they wouldn't have gone out and got him in the offseason and committed money to him if he wasn't going to play a role on this team this season. So for all those things, I understand everybody talking about how deep the wide receiver room is, and we didn't see everything that happened at practice. But it just seemed to me that there was a place for him, probably not for the first couple weeks of the regular season, but we know injuries happen, and we know there's going to be times where guys have to step up. You would think there was going to be a place for him on this squad.
Yeah, so it seems – now, I haven't seen any news on Steven Sims. Have you seen news on Steven Sims?
Not yet.
Brian, have you seen news on Steven Sims?
No.
We saw that Skronik has been cut.
Right.
Skronik's not making this football team. Like Cephas, we already knew that, not making this football team. Are the Texans keeping 7 receivers? Are they keeping 7? Because I haven't heard the news on Sims, and this will start to filter out. We heard news all throughout the day. But you're keeping your big 3.
Right.
You're keeping Nico. You're keeping Steph. You're keeping Tank. You're keeping Robert Woods. Mm-hmm. Robert Woods is on this football team. It looks like you're keeping Xavier Hutchinson, not a surprise. Looks like you're keeping John Mechie, not a surprise. That's 6. Are they keeping Steven Sims as wide receiver number 7 so he can return kicks?
I think they are. And the only thing that I can think of is maybe there's validity at some point to a trade to where they might still be working on something. I know the deadline's already passed.
Yeah, Sims is not a trade guy, though.
No. I'm saying a Mechie type trade. That maybe if you trade Mechie, then Sims is your guy that fills that roster spot, then you only keep 6.
Yeah, I think it's probably too late in the day for that. I think
so?
we would. Yeah, I mean the last trade that went down was like an hour ago, and it was the Jones guy from the Rams that I wanted. And he went to the stinking Titans for a late round pick swap. I was not pleased to see that. I would have liked to do that, but maybe they think that Christian Harris is going to be back soon because Harris. Aaron Wilson reported yesterday. And Aaron Wilson, by the way, we know we give him grief about the D'Amico Ryans thing. Aaron Wilson was all over this. He was breaking things 30 minutes before
really
Schefter was breaking it. So tip my cap to Aaron Wilson. He knocked it out of the park today. That was fantastic work. He was on a Twitter space last night, and he was saying that Christian Harris isn't starting the season out on IR. So maybe the Texans feel like they can get him back in week 1 or week 2.
Yeah, the last that I had seen was they expect Will Anderson for week 1 and that there's a possibility for Christian Harris for week 1. I mean, that's great, but at what level of play is he going to be when you get him back to where I gotta believe that they are now scouring the waiver wire, just looking at linebackers. I thought that before we got to the 53-man cut down time, and now I believe most certainly they're looking at linebackers.
That's the thing too, is like today you're gonna have the 53, but it's gonna look different in 3 days.
Yes.
Like you're gonna have some movement, and it might not be a lot. It might be 2 or 3 guys. It might be 7 guys between now and like the weekend. So that's something to keep in mind. The corner room is interesting to me. Like Noah Brown to me is the biggest surprise of the cut down. I thought he'd be on the IR. Some people like had him flat out making the 53. The corner room is interesting. You release C.J. Henderson, which that's not too much of a surprise, but it looks like you kept Jeff Okudah. You kept Miles Bryant. You cut Desmond King. You cut Pride. The guy that got hurt the other day, you kept him on this team. So you cut Mike Ford. So the corner room is one that I still think is in flux, and we're talking about like guys who could be on the move and stuff. I think that the backups and the outside corners especially is something that the Texans will be looking to address.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that I thought that they would cut both Okudah and Henderson regardless, but I thought that they would be looking across the league. I think linebacker and corner are 2 spots that they're definitely looking to upgrade between now and, as you said, the next couple of days. I think that this is a time where Nick's could really shine and just find a couple of veterans that are upgrades from what you've had on this roster previously and get you ready for the start of the season. I think they need someone there because we know what Stingley is, but we also know that his history has some injuries in it, obviously. And then you don't know what you don't know about Lassiter, but he's a rookie, and you got to have backups. You got to have a backup in that case as well. So I think linebacker and corner are definitely something that they're looking to go get.
Yeah, that'll be something that will be in play for the Texans. The news on Case Keenum, his season is over, placed on the IR. Apparently he had a foot injury all throughout camp, and he was like at 70% with the foot injury, re-aggravated it in the preseason finale, and the Texans, it's a 3 or 4 month injury. So not only is it season ending, but perhaps career ending for Case Keenum at this stage of his career, and he's had a terrific career. Maybe this is going to be like his segue into coaching, that he's like still a player, even though he's hurt. He's still going to be around because they value his input and his IQ and his brain. Maybe this is going to be his segue from a player to a coach.
I think you're right. I think that based on everything you ever heard about CJ and how Case has been big brother to him, and they go out to dinners and they've talked the whole time. That's a security blanket that you like having around. He's had a great run, a great career. He's in his town now, where he doesn't need to go anywhere else. And maybe it does set him up so that depending on what happens a year from now, when we start talking about if and when you look at if jobs are going out and Slowick gets a job and Johnson's elevated or whatever the case may be. He could be your quarterback coach in waiting.
Yeah, he'll be coveted in the coaching realm if that is the route that he goes. But yeah, placed on the IR. Now, what's interesting here is because I don't think, look, I love Case, go Cougs. I don't think anybody expected him to actually play a game of significance or start a game of significance this year. Like last year when CJ got hurt for those couple of weeks, it was like, oh, Case is the surprise start. Veteran, knows the offense. I don't think that's the case anymore this year. With Davis Mills solidifying himself as a backup, second year in the offense, like Davis Mills is the clear-cut, no doubt about it, second-string quarterback on the Texans. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's washed and maybe keep a Tim Boyle. And it's like, well, third-string quarterback, you're not keeping because they're, like, good at football. You're keeping them because they're, like, they fill out the room. And he can still do that when he's on the IR. Now, what's curious about this, 2 quarterbacks on the 53, it seems. They cut Boyle. What do they do for the emergency third quarterback? Do they just go into these games without an emergency third quarterback? Or are they scouring the waiver wire to look for an emergency third quarterback? Now, keep in mind that rule that they vetoed yesterday, you can't elevate a practice squad quarterback to be the emergency third. So if you do carry a third quarterback, you'd have to be on the 53.
I would think that they are going to roll with what they've got for now, and they'll keep an eye out on what's going on. I think and there was a lot of pushback across the league on that rule getting vetoed. It'll be interesting to see how they play it because it's hard to say. You're not going to react unless you have a reason to, like that you have an injury in the room or an injury pops up. So I don't think that they have to do something right away. But I think that with a team like this, you obviously have to be prepared to where they have to be looking and seeing what's out there.
Yeah, I think they're just going to roll the dice, too, without the emergency third quarterback. Because you'd have to either put him on the 53 or you can have a practice squad guy, which the elevation's 3. I looked that up. It's 3 elevations, not 4. I was saying 4 yesterday. It's 3. Now, you can elevate a practice squad quarterback, but if you do, he takes a spot on the game day roster, which if he's on the 53-man roster and he's your emergency third, he is not one of the guys on the game day roster. So you can't really recircumvent the rule here. You can't game the rule here. So if you wanted an emergency third quarterback, the best way to do it is to have him on the 53-man roster. I tend to agree with you that the Texans are just going to roll with these two really for the entire year. Now, maybe if they have like a rash of injuries and, maybe not even at the quarterback position, like maybe just guys that they like that they wanted to keep on the 53, you have 5 guys get hurt, and now it's like, okay, well, now we have the luxury of carrying a third quarterback where we didn't before because we didn't want to cut, player 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think that's something that could change, but it wouldn't change before the start of the season. Maybe once you get going and, attrition and all of that stuff. Texans don't keep Andrew Beck. This was another one of the surprises to me. Now, they do keep the British Bulldog Brooks. British Bulldog Brooks has made the team. Undrafted free agent. Jawar Jordan did not make the team, but the British Bulldog Brooks has made the team. It seems like he's going to be the fullback, H-back, 4th, 5th running back for the Houston Texans. Quite the story. The story for the British Bulldog.
No, and they like his physicality. I think they like you said, he's versatile enough that they can use him in a variety of different ways. He's not going to cost you a whole lot. I think the talk also was that you've got 3 tight ends, and you might be able to use the tight ends a little bit like a fullback, H-back as well. But interesting because I thought Beck brought a lot to the table, from special teams to the fact that he has speed for a guy his size, and as the fullback, he can hit, he can block and he can pick up blitzes. So I was a little surprised by that move.
Yeah. Now, he does look like a freak. Like, I've liked what I've seen from the British Bulldog. And Beck also had some injuries. Like, maybe that was the difference. Maybe if Beck doesn't get hurt, Beck makes the 53, and you try to store the British Bulldog on the practice squad. Maybe that was the one that broke the tie or gave the Bulldog the lead in that conversation. But I've liked what I saw from him. So it's kind of fun that he's going to make the 53 and then see how the Texans deploy him. Because they were using him in that last preseason game. It's like, okay, you're a fullback. Okay, you're going to get some carries. Oh, okay, we're lining you up as a tight end, or motioning you out of the fullback spot into more of a tight end role. I'm way too excited for a fullback that's probably the 53rd guy on this football team.
But I think you're right. I
Mostly for that.
But I think that what they did too was they basically used the last preseason game just to see, against competition from another team, what could he do as they moved him around, and because he could hold his own and he could still carry the football, as you mentioned, then he's serviceable.
Yeah. I think it's going to be fun. And I saw one half of PP, Seth Payne, just moments ago on Twitter talking about how he reminds him a little bit of Vontae Leach. And it's like, okay, well, that's a football guy talking about a fullback that was a
comparison that gets me excited.
Yeah. I mean, it's coming from one half of PP. So
that's the last time I was excited about a fullback was Vontae Leach in 2010.
I like Juszczyk from
yeah, but he's the only one.
Yeah. Hunter?
No, Hunter, Juszczyk
Kyle,
Arkansas.
Juszczyk's the one that's got the wife that makes all the clothes.
Look at you showing off. Look at that range from Blankers. That's good. No, he didn't say Vontae Leach. It's my bad. He said Lorenzo Neal, which also a very high compliment.
Vontae Leach was
good.
Nails though, man.
He was good. I loved Neal too though, but I loved Leach. That guy was just he was a wrecking ball. He was a wrecking ball. Yeah, he would just run right through you. He was built how was he built? He was built like a brick wall is how he was built. And some choice words maybe if you're into that sort of thing.
Wasn't Juszczyk like an ex-rugby player or something too?
I don't know.
Ivy League guy, I think. But yeah,
now we're going to have to fact check
he's
you
really
on that.
Good. I'll look that
We're
up.
going to have to check up the facts there as you give us a little data dump on the fullback for San Francisco.